When 72-year-old Margaret Wilson discovered that a simple ancient remedy could transform her life from unbearable pain to renewed vitality, powerful pharmaceutical interests and established doctors like Dr. Richard Pemberton launched a vicious campaign to destroy her reputation and silence her voice. They called her a fraud, accused her of exploiting vulnerable seniors for profit, and tried to discredit the scientific research that proved golden milk's effectiveness, all because her discovery threatened their billion-dollar industry built on expensive medications. But fate had a different plan. Real people with real results, like Emily's grandmother, who returned to painting after years of arthritis, stood up to defend Margaret when she needed it most. Just wait until you hear how this shocking battle between ancient wisdom and modern greed unfolded, and why justice ultimately prevailed in the most inspiring way possible. Margaret Wilson stood at her bedroom window at dawn, watching neighbors prepare for their morning jog. At 72, she felt her body had betrayed her completely. Severe arthritis had transformed ordinary movements into torture, while chronic insomnia drained whatever strength remained. Doctors kept prescribing medications, but nothing provided relief. Every morning arrived with swollen joints and thick mental fog that refused to clear until evening. The cool glass pressed against her fingertips as she steadied herself. Outside, younger couples stretched on manicured lawns, their bodies moving with effortless grace. Margaret remembered when she could do the same, when she and Robert walked the neighborhood every evening, hands intertwined, discussing their day and dreaming about retirement together. Now, descending the stairs felt like conquering Everest. Her daughter Olivia called every single day with the same plea. "Mom, please consider the assisted living facility. It has beautiful gardens, activities, medical staff available around the clock." And Margaret's response never changed. "This is my home, Olivia. This is where your father and I raised you and your brothers. I can't abandon it." But she didn't tell her daughter the whole truth. This house wasn't just a building filled with memories. It was her last tangible connection to Robert, who had died 3 years earlier. Every room held echoes of their life together. The kitchen where they slow danced to jazz records, the living room where they'd watched their children grow, the bedroom they'd shared for 43 years. Leaving would mean accepting that chapter had truly ended, that she was merely waiting for death in some sterile facility. One evening, catastrophe struck. Margaret attempted to carry laundry downstairs, knowing it was foolish but hating her helplessness. Halfway down, her foot caught the carpet runner. She tumbled forward, the basket flying from her grip, her body crashing down 7 steps before stopping at the landing. The pain in her right knee was blinding, all-consuming. She screamed, then lay there unable to move, tears streaming down her face. After what felt like hours, she managed to reach her phone and call Olivia. Her daughter arrived 45 minutes later, having broken speed limits across town. She found Margaret still collapsed on the landing, sobbing from both physical agony and crushing helplessness. At the emergency room, Dr. Morrison delivered harsh news. "You're lucky nothing broke this time, Mrs. Wilson, but another fall could leave you permanently disabled. You need professional care or assisted living. This situation is unsustainable." Olivia pleaded with her mother to accept help. Margaret refused caregivers. The compromise was a medical alert bracelet and promises to be more careful. But late that night, alone in her bed, Margaret faced the truth. She was losing this battle. Her body was failing. The house that once symbolized love and family now felt like a prison. She couldn't manage stairs without agony, couldn't cook or clean or maintain any independence. The sleepless nights grew worse. Margaret would lie awake listening to the house settle, remembering Robert beside her, his gentle breathing, his warmth. Now only cold emptiness remained. The antidepressants left her numb, but didn't ease sadness or insomnia. Around 3 one morning, Margaret gave up trying to sleep. She carefully descended the stairs using her new cane and settled into the living room armchair. She turned on the television for distraction, not caring what played. A documentary about traditional medicine was showing. An elderly Indian woman appeared on screen, preparing something in a small pot. Despite her usual skepticism toward folk remedies, Margaret felt compelled to watch. "For 60 years I suffered," the woman said in accented English. "My joints hurt so badly I couldn't hold my grandchildren. I couldn't sleep at night. Doctors gave me medicines, but nothing helped. Then my daughter reminded me of the old ways my grandmother taught me. Every night before bed, I drink golden milk, turmeric, black pepper, warm milk, honey, simple ingredients, ancient wisdom. Now I sleep peacefully. My pain is manageable, I can live again. Margaret leaned forward as the documentary explained curcumin's anti-inflammatory properties, how black pepper increased absorption, how generations across India had used this remedy for arthritis and sleep disorders. Her rational mind said this was nonsense, but her desperate heart whispered, "What do you have to lose?" At 9 the next morning, Margaret drove to a health food store. A young clerk named Emma greeted her warmly. "Looking for something specific?" "Turmeric, black pepper, for golden milk." Emma's face brightened. "My grandmother swears by it. Let me show you what we have." She explained the different types, recommending organic powder for mixing. She handed Margaret a recipe card. 1 cup milk, 1 teaspoon turmeric, 1/4 teaspoon black pepper. Heat gently without boiling. Add honey to taste. The pepper is crucial for absorption. That evening, Margaret stood in her kitchen, carefully measuring ingredients. The turmeric turned white milk brilliant gold. She added pepper, stirred, poured it into Robert's anniversary mug. The taste was unusual warming, slightly bitter, sweet from honey. Strange, but not terrible. Margaret almost stopped halfway through, feeling foolish chasing a television remedy, but she remembered the Indian woman's peaceful smile and finished every drop. She went through her nighttime routine expecting another sleepless stretch. She turned off the light, focused on breathing, tried not to think about aching joints or the empty bed. Then, without realizing, she fell asleep. Sunlight woke her. Margaret checked the clock and gasped. 8:30. She'd slept 8 hours straight. She lay still, afraid to break the spell. Slowly, she assessed her body. The usual stiffness remained, but the throbbing knee pain seemed diminished. The mental fog felt lighter. She sat up, bracing for sharp jolts. They came but muted, manageable. Margaret stood, testing her weight. One step, then another. It could be coincidence or placebo, but something had shifted. That evening, she made another cup, adding cinnamon. 1 week passed with her nightly ritual. The improvements were subtle but real. Pain became tolerable. She slept 6 to 7 hours. She could walk her garden again, tending flowers herself. When Olivia visited, she stopped in the kitchen doorway, staring. Margaret was chopping vegetables, humming something she hadn't done since Robert died. "Mom, you look different. What changed?" Margaret explained about the documentary, the golden milk, the improved sleep and reduced pain. Olivia's physician training made her skeptical. "It could just be a good phase. Let's get blood work done." The results showed significantly decreased inflammation markers. Olivia studied the numbers in disbelief. "This is a measurable change." Margaret shared the recipe with her friend Dorothy, who suffered similar issues. 2 weeks later, Dorothy called crying. "I slept through the night without pills for the first time in 5 years. I could button my shirt without help this morning." News spread through their retirement community. Neighbor Harold, who'd had 3 knee surgeries, requested the recipe. Margaret wrote detailed instructions about each ingredient's importance. Within a month, 15 people were trying golden milk. Most reported improvements: better sleep, less pain, clearer thinking. Not miracles, but meaningful quality of life changes. Olivia suggested starting a blog. Margaret resisted initially. She was 72 and barely managed email, but eventually agreed. They launched Golden Years with Golden Milk. Margaret's first post was simple, her story and the basic recipe. Within 3 days, it had 5,000 shares. Messages flooded in nationwide. Susan from Texas wrote that after 3 weeks, she could hug her grandchildren again after years of back pain preventing it. James from Oregon shared he was reducing pharmaceutical painkillers under doctor supervision after adding turmeric milk to his routine. Each message filled Margaret with warmth as she hadn't felt since Robert's death. She wasn't just surviving, she was helping people. She had purpose again. The blog grew. Margaret posted regularly about her health journey, recipe variations, turmeric research, and reader responses. Her days gained structure. Mornings in Robert's rose garden, afternoons responding to messages and researching, evenings preparing golden milk and reading peacefully. The house transformed from prison back to home. Margaret converted the guest room into an office, filling it with photos of Robert and their family. Instead of sadness, these images now brought gratitude. She realized she'd been trying to preserve Robert's memory by keeping everything frozen in time. But Robert had been curious and adventurous. He would want her living, not merely existing in the past. 3 months after that sleepless night watching the documentary, Margaret sat in her garden with golden milk, watching the sunset. Her joints still ached, they probably always would. She still missed Robert daily, but pain and loss no longer defined her. She was Margaret Wilson, and she discovered it was never too late to find hope, help others, or truly live again. The golden milk had become more than physical remedy. It symbolized her second chance, proving that sometimes answers are simpler than imagined. Every evening, preparing her cup and watching milk turn golden, she whispered thanks to the unknown Indian woman on television, to ancient wisdom preserved through generations, and to her own stubborn refusal to surrender completely. 3 months later, Margaret received a letter from the local newspaper wanting to feature her story. Journalist Rebecca arrived Tuesday morning with her notebook and recorder. Margaret described her years of pain, endless doctor visits, medications that failed. She explained the fall on the stairs, the desperate fear, then that pivotal sleepless night watching the documentary about golden milk. "And you noticed improvement immediately?" Rebecca asked. "Not right away. The first night I slept well, but thought it was coincidence. After a week of consistent use, I truly believed something had changed. The pain became manageable, my mind cleared, I could move without dreading every step." Rebecca photographed Margaret preparing the drink in her kitchen, measuring turmeric, grinding pepper, stirring the golden liquid. The final shot showed her holding Robert's anniversary mug, filled with golden milk and a genuine smile. The Sunday article appeared under the headline, "Local Grandmother Discovers Ancient Youth Secret." The reaction was instantaneous. Her phone rang constantly. By Monday, hundreds of emails flooded in, people sharing pain stories, asking questions, some skeptical, others desperate. Olivia found her mother exhausted at the computer. "You can't answer all these yourself." They created a FAQ document and auto responses, but people wanted more, to meet Margaret personally, hear her story firsthand. Olivia suggested community meetings. The first meeting expected 20 people. 75 showed up, packing the community center. Margaret's hands trembled holding her notes, but once she began speaking, nervousness faded. She demonstrated the preparation, answered questions for over an hour. At the third meeting, Dr. Stephen Harris approached a gerontology professor from the state university. "Your story fascinates me. Curcumin shows promise in studies, but we lack real-world elderly population data. I'd like to conduct a formal study, volunteers with inflammatory conditions, half receiving golden milk, half placebo, tracking markers over 8 weeks." Margaret agreed. 30 volunteers over 65 participated. Results were remarkable. The golden milk group showed significant inflammation reduction, 40% pain decrease, dramatically improved sleep, and better mobility. The placebo group showed minimal changes. Dr. Harris published findings in an integrative medicine journal, crediting Margaret's inspiration. The story exploded nationally. Health websites covered it. Television shows invited her. A publisher offered a book deal. Everything happened fast. 6 months earlier, Margaret could barely leave bed. Now she traveled to studios, gave interviews, met publishers. But attention brought criticism. Dr. Richard Pemberton, a cardiologist with pharmaceutical company ties, wrote a scathing article calling her story dangerous. The research flawed, suggesting Margaret exploited vulnerable seniors for profit. Other doctors joined the criticism. Online comments turned vicious, accusations of lying, running scams. Olivia wanted to sue, but Margaret refused. That would only create more conflict. The criticism hurt deeply. She'd never sought fame or money, just wanted to help. The stress affected her sleep again. Not from pain, but emotional exhaustion. She considered abandoning everything. One evening in her garden, a young woman named Emily approached. She'd driven from Ohio specifically to thank Margaret. "My 85-year-old grandmother raised me after my parents died. 2 years ago, severe arthritis left her barely able to move. She became depressed, stopped painting, her lifelong passion. Doctors tried everything. Nothing worked. 3 months ago, I read about you. I'm a nurse. I was skeptical, but desperate. Grammy was talking about wanting to die." Emily pulled out photographs. The first showed a woman slumped in a wheelchair, face etched with pain. Subsequent photos showed transformation, standing with a walker, sitting at an easel painting, smiling while holding a vibrant canvas. After 6 weeks of golden milk every night, She picked up her brushes again. Look at these paintings from last month. She's alive again. I don't care what critics say. You gave me back my grandmother. You saved her life. Both women cried. Margaret studied the beautiful paintings, sunset over mountains, flowers in brilliant colors. This wasn't placebo effect. This was real improvement, restored function, renewed joy. After Emily left, Margaret sat until sunset, thinking about criticism versus reality. Yes, powerful interests opposed her message. Yes, skepticism was warranted. But the evidence was undeniable, real people experiencing genuine quality of life improvements. The criticism didn't matter as much as the help she could provide. Margaret decided to continue with renewed focus. Instead of engaging critics, she'd concentrate on helping people who wanted help. Dr. Harris recruited more researchers for larger trials involving 3 universities and 200 participants. Results confirmed original findings with stronger statistical significance. Margaret founded Golden Years Initiative, a nonprofit providing free information about natural approaches to healthy aging. No product sales, no manufacturer sponsorships, only small donations from grateful individuals. Olivia closed her medical practice and joined her mother full-time, bringing professional expertise to the organization. They developed programs for assisted living facilities, training staff in golden milk preparation. Results were striking. 40% reduction in pain medication usage, half as many sleep complaints, improved mood and mobility. Critics gradually quieted. Some doctors who initially dismissed golden milk began recommending it alongside conventional treatment. 1 year after first trying golden milk, Margaret stood on stage at the National Integrative Medicine Symposium as keynote speaker, addressing hundreds of medical professionals. After her speech, an elderly man in a wheelchair approached. Mrs. Wilson, my family came from India 3 generations ago. My great-grandmother made this drink every night. She called it Haldi Doodh. She lived to 97 with clarity and minimal pain, but we forgot this wisdom. Thank you for reminding the world that sometimes the simplest remedies are most powerful. That evening, Margaret returned home and prepared her cup. She sat in Robert's chair by the window, gazing at the flourishing garden. The house felt full again, differently than before, but full of purpose, meaning, connections to thousands she'd helped. Margaret reflected on the year's transformation. 12 months ago, she'd been broken, hopeless, ready to surrender. In that darkness, she'd found light. She'd discovered aging didn't have to mean suffering. Loss didn't have to end purpose. The golden milk had become her symbol of second chances, a nightly reminder that it's never too late to begin again, never too late to matter.